Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Carla Shepherd in the building. Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in again. We're about to do part 2 of this recap. This one right here is a recap. We were live earlier. For everybody who want to check out the first half. Carla Shepherd is in the building. Appreciate you always. Hit the share button, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we appreciate everybody, those who choose not to be recognized in the chat, who just listen, as well as everybody who subscribe, who listens to the channel. Also, the Frizz, what's good? B-Dog, what's good? The Stoic, back. Boner Rockland Soul, Bruno 67, Jim D's in the building. Wait for a couple of other people to come up in here today. They had a lot of revealing testimony, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of revealing testimony. Lovely in the building. Roosevelt B. Bruno 67, welcome back. Empire King. Jake It Snake. What's good? Appreciate everybody. I appreciate you guys, man. Like I said, once again, for showing the love and staying down and dirty. Wait for a couple of other people to come up in here. We're going to start. Ladies and gentlemen, man, today was a hell of a day, I think, for Diddy in court. To me, I'm waiting patiently for them to get to the crimes, if you will. DJ Dice Brooklyn, B Mac, Bobby J. Isaiah, I Rock J's, appreciate you, man. We're gonna get into it like this, ladies and gentlemen. So today, Cassie took the stand. It was a hell of a day. It was a hell of a day for the most part. You know, after lunch is when it really got heated up, right? You know, Cassie testified as to the length of the length of the freak offs, if you will, lasting anywhere from 36 minutes to 48 hours. 36 hours to 48 hours. The marathon session frequently required periods of recovery from dehydration, fatigue, and drug use, she said, right? Like I said, what did you say, Carla Shepherd? Other than Diddy assaulting Cassie, that's the only crime so far. That's what a lot of people are saying. You have a lot of people also in their emotions and their feelings about certain aspects of what's been going on as far as the case is concerned. And I can understand that. Like I said, everybody's going to have a different perspective and feeling about how they digest the information. But like I said, after the lunch break, you know, they basically chimed in about how long the freak offs would last. And she said, you know, the longest one lasted for about 4 days. And so she talked about, you know, that one in particular needing to recover. They said sometimes they had IVs, you know, from drug use and so on and so forth. What I find interesting about this situation is that Cassie is basically the prosecution, should I say? I wouldn't say Cassie. The prosecution is basically absolving Cassie of any accountability, or trying to, in front of the jury, basically saying that, you know what, you know, Cassie she was just incapable of doing anything. You know, everything was, you know, so much so that they asked Cassie on the stand. They said, "But who decision was it?" basically. I'm gonna get to that. Um, but like I said, Cassie testified basically about her music career. Also, um, what was huge also in the case was the Suge Knight aspect. The Suge Knight aspect of this situation where they brung Suge Knight name into the picture in regards to the Mel's Diner situation, and where Cassie said one of the bodyguards basically came in the house while they were allegedly involved in some type of freak off. Cassie recalled the incident in which she said Combs left her. He left her during a freak off. Now, you know, from what she's been saying and how she's been describing the situation, you would think that if him leaving her uh, for to go somewhere else, other than being involved in the freak off, you would think that she would be relieved, from that perspective, right? But she said during a freak off, the bodyguard came in and told Combs about Suge Knight being at Mel's Drive-In Diner in L.A., a landmark diner nearby. Combs sprang into action after his bodyguard came in and basically told him, "Hey, look, Suge is down at Mel's Diner," and you know, uh, Combs grabbed the guns, loaded the guns. They had on all black. They, basically got the guns from the safe, jumped in the SUV. She said, now, Cassie said during this moment, and they're supposed to be in the midst of some type of freak off, right? Cassie said during this moment, she started crying. She was crying. I was screaming, please don't do anything stupid. Cassie testified. I was really nervous for them. I didn't know what they were going to do, she said. Um, it was like she wasn't there. Uh, he said, right? I mean, she said she was like, it was like I wasn't there. Cassie said Combs later returned, but she didn't say if he told her what happened. It's unclear if he ended up encountering Suge Knight at the diner. So once again, we know that this information actually came out. This information actually came out during the civil case. So we know basically that it's a carbon copy. The civil case is a carbon copy of the criminal case. Or should I say the criminal case is a carbon copy of the civil case, right? So they bring Suge Knight into this. I think they did that to show Diddy's propensity for violence, right? That was one of the other talking points today, if you will, right? Um, Cassie basically said, and she talked about the first time that she did a freak off, right? Um, Cassie testified that her first freak off occurred in Combs' Los Angeles home when she was about 22 and around 2008. She said a male Las Vegas stripper came to the home just months after Combs told her about his interest in voyeurism. So Diddy basically liked watching, I guess, I would say first it probably started with porn, and then it started with voyeurism. So he likes watching people do whatever they do. So he, I guess, asked Cassie. Cassie was she said that she was she wanted to please him. Cassie said she felt a mix of emotions when they were finished, after the situation was finished, dirty and confused, but also relief that Combs was really happy with me, that I did something right. She said she felt obligated to go along with future freak offs, right? That right there, that hit me because, like I said, she said also I just didn't want to make him upset. I just didn't want to make him angry or regret telling me about his experience, right? Because it was so personal. So she didn't want to upset him basically about the fact that he had shared with her that he liked voyeurism. So she felt like, you know what, I did what he wanted me to do. I made him happy, and in making him happy, she felt like she had did something good. I don't think that reflected in him. I think it reflected more in her, because, like I said, once again, she had the opportunity to be there, stay there, or not be there. You know, um, and then asked if there was anything that she enjoyed about the freak offs. And by the prosecutor, she was asked if there was anything that she enjoyed about the freak offs. And an emotional Cassie, she was crying. She said the time spent with him, wiping away tears. She explained that those encounters provided some of the only one-on-one time she had with Combs. Soon she said she was doing a freak off a week. Basically, she was doing one freak off a week or something like that from her best of her recollection. And the final freak off, she said, occurred in around 2017 to 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, when you think about what happened at that hotel, that was in 2000. That was in March 5th of 2016. The guy, the Israel Flores, the security guard, testified that, to what happened. Diddy offered him a wad of money. Diddy ultimately paid some security guard, and I'm not sure if it was Flores. He paid some security guard $100,000 to basically hide the tape, or not let the tape make the public, if you will. In Israel Flores, he testified that he asked Cassie, and she had a purple eye. This is after the hotel situation. Down in the lobby, he's basically asking her, do you want me to call the police? Cassie says, no, I just want to leave, right? So she had the opportunity to call the police. Why she didn't call the police, once again, they're not really focusing on that, or want us to focus on why she didn't do certain things, only what Diddy did. You understand what I'm saying? And I think it's crazy because once again, they're trying to absolve Cassie of any kind of responsibility, if you will, or accountability, if you will, in regards to that. Like, say, after March 5th, 2016, you would have thought, before we seen that tape from the Intercontinental Hotel, you would have thought that the situation or the relationship should have been over. After she had, dealt with that, like I said, once again, I had heard that there was over $200,000 in that Louis Vuitton bag that Diddy grabbed first when he had assaulted Cassie and pushed her down and then kicked her, and he had grabbed the Louis Vuitton bag. From what I understand, like I said, I don't know if it's true. They said it was like almost $200,000 in cash in that Louis Vuitton bag. So I don't know if she was trying to leave with the money or he was upset about that. I really don't know, but that's what was said. And the fight was over some kind of cell phone or something like that, if you will, right? So Cassie said the final freak off was in around 2017 or 18. Ladies and gentlemen, that's clearly after that hotel tape. That's after the hotel tape, right? And so my thing is, well, when was she going to leave? From, like I said, the hotel tape was horrific. The security guard testified she had a purple eye, and so this is what we're understanding had happened. Like I said, a lot of people are going to say, the whole thing was somehow, she was supposed to be, she was scared, and it was this. Like I said, I don't know what her feelings were. You know what I mean? I'm just going by what we're hearing in court, and this is basically what they're talking about, right? So now, that happened after 2016. So the Met Gala, the Metropolitan Museum, all of these other functions that they attended, it leads you to believe, other than us seeing that tape, that everything was good. Everything was good between them. Like I said, we never saw that tape. And like I said, minus her lawsuit, we would have thought everything was good. And like I say, even some people in seeing her civil lawsuit thought that it was just a money grab. And some people still do think it was a money grab, from that perspective, right? But like I said, her final freak off, she said, was in 2017 or 2018. I guess she couldn't really remember which day it was. I mean, I'm sorry, which year it was, if you will, right? But that's basically what she said. She testified to that, right? So now, every freak off, she basically said, involved 10 bottles of baby oil, 10 large bottles of baby oil, right? Cassie said the freak offs were a very choreographed experience with lots of baby oil. The substance would be heated up a closed bottle placed in a sink filled with hot water and applied liberally because Combs wanted her glistening constantly, she said. Combs would call out Cassie when she looked dry and ordered her to reapply, sometimes requiring a new coat of baby oil every 5 minutes or so, she said. On one occasion, she said, a blow-up pool of baby oil and lubricants was placed in a hotel room, and she was told to get inside in her outfit and shoes. Get inside the baby oil and the lubricant. You know what I mean? Telling her to jump inside. She said close to 10 large-sized bottles of baby oil would be used during a freak-off. It was such a mess, she said. It was like, what are you doing? Now, once again, she's explaining, and now we know and understand, as many people as were making memes about the baby oil situation, now we understand what the baby oil was for. You know, some people's like, you know, Diddy, you know, he likes being with guys or whatever. Like I said, I don't know what he likes. I know what they're saying he likes. I know what Cassie's saying that he likes. You know what I mean? I know what Daniel Phillips says that Diddy was into. You know what I mean? So this is the only thing that I'm listening to at this particular time as to what a person likes and doesn't like. Like I said, so she explained, you know, what the baby oil and all of those things were about, right? But this is the part that really caught me the most, right? This is the part that caught me the most. The part that caught me the most was the prosecutors basically emphasizes Combs' alleged involvement, right? And so as she was questioning Cassie, as she was questioning Cassie, the prosecutor, Emily Johnson, returned again and again to a simple but important question. And this is what got me. The prosecutor asked Cassie, whose decision was it, right, to put Cassie in the freak-offs, right? Whose decision was it to incorporate baby oil? Whose decision was it to involve male sex workers? Whose decision was it to pour candle wax over her body? And each time Cassie was asked that question, Cassie said, Sean Combs, right? Now, once again, there's a difference between a decision, right, and an idea. And so this is where I thought the prosecution went offhand a little bit and said, well, when she's asked, well, whose decision was it? No, the decision was Cassie's to participate in the behavior that she participated in, whether it was out of love, whether it was out of opportunity, whether it was out of whatever. Like I said, more importantly, it was Cassie's decision. Cassie could have walked away like she walked away on year 10, in year 3, in year 2, in year 5, in year 8, you know, of the relationship. She chose to walk away later. That was her choice. Not trying to figure out why she did or didn't walk away from that perspective, right? Okay. But when the prosecutor asked Cassie, whose decision was it? Cassie said it was Sean Combs' decision. No, it was his idea. But the decision, the final decision, was up to Cassie. This is the thing that I'm talking about. They're trying to basically absolve Cassie of any accountability for playing a part in any of this. And Cassie basically volunteered and said earlier that the first freak off was in and around 2008, right? And then she said after that, she felt obligated. She felt obligated, not forced, not coerced, but obligated to participate because she was trying to satisfy Sean Combs's appetite for voyeurism or anything else that he might would be into. So it was his idea, but it was her final decision as to whether she wanted to be in that or not. As we see and we look back, we see the hotel situation, right? Okay, there you have it. She went away and it was done, right? She could have left then. She didn't. But the guy, Daniel Phillips, basically said, yo, I was there one time and Diddy assaulted her. She could have left then. But she told him, you know, hey, I'm okay. Cool. She stayed. And like I said, once again, no matter how emotional people want to be or how much they want to get into their feelings about it, this is what happened because Cassie chose to make that decision, that she felt that the ties that binded her and Diddy together were stronger than those that would tear them apart. It's just as simple as that. You know what I mean? She felt like the money, the lifestyle. The prosecutor also asked her, what did you do for a living? Like, what did you do to earn money? And she said that she would host parties and other things when Diddy would let her do it or allow her to do it, right? From that perspective. Now, once again, could she be able to host parties if she wasn't with Diddy? I would think so. I mean, Cassie, she had a nice little like hit song out. You know what I mean? I think that she would be able to do that, but she chose to do it under the guidance of him. Also, ladies and gentlemen, right? Cassie also testified that Diddy paid for an apartment for her in New York, in Manhattan. Also paid for an apartment for her in Los Angeles. Once again, if the ties that bind a person together are stronger than those that tear them apart, all will be well. And she felt as though the benefits, right, outweighed the non-benefits. That's the way it appears to me. Like I said, once again, because if it was bad, evidently, like I said, we seen the tape from the hotel, so it was bad. Not if it was bad. Like I said, once again, somebody enduring that kind of abuse, and dealing with that situation, it's bad. Now, we could look at that and we could say from an outside looking in standpoint, well, why didn't she leave? Like the guy, the sex worker guy, like he said, the guy Daniel Phillips, he was like, why do you stay? Why don't you leave? Because even him looking at that said, to him, he was like, man, some people deal with common sense differently. He's like, damn, well, why don't you leave? She said, no, I'm okay. So couldn't nobody make Cassie do anything from that perspective. She did what she wanted to do. And so that was the part that really baffled me about the whole thing. Like I said, once again, some people are saying, oh, she was forced to do it. It was like, I just didn't see that. Like I said, furthermore, Cassie didn't live with Diddy. Remember, she testified that he had bought her own apartment. So she didn't even live with him. So whenever Cassie got good and ready to leave, if she wanted to say, you know what, I'm taking a taxi to the airport and I'm going home with my parents. I'm going home with my cousin. I'm going to go live with my cousin. I'm going to go live with my auntie and all of them. She could have did it. She didn't do it. So once again, I think when the defense does a cross-examination, I think they're going to basically, talk about that, right? He said, when he say, B say, get a fork, whose goose is cooked. He said, this is what he said. It's not that easy for someone. No, Tara Redmond, listen to me. I understand that it's not that easy for a woman to leave, right? But eventually Cassie left. So whether it was in year 10, year 8, 7, 5, 2, or 1, or 6 months, right? Like I said, she felt even after 2016, after the hotel situation, unbeknownst to us, she chose to stay. And she didn't just choose to stay. And man, I can't even. So if let's take Diddy being, I wouldn't even think she was with Ron Leslie. Let's be Ryan Leslie, right? Let's say she wouldn't have tolerated that from no broke guy. You know what I mean? Like I said, Diddy bought her a car. He put her in a place. All of those things, she would be giving up all of those things. Like I said, the favorable things about Diddy outweigh the unfavorable things. You got to look at it as that's the reality. So, it's like, it's hard to leave. The emotional tear. No, like I said, he's a violent guy. He was beating her up. He was assaulting her. It was domestic violence, on 10, on 12, right? So like I said, when you think about the bigger picture, she can answer that. Like I said, she said she loved him. Even after the situation at the hotel, the security guard said, hey, would you like for me to call the police? She said no. You see what I'm saying? So when we understand that, we listening to what the testimony is. It's not us coming up with this story, right? Yeah, absolutely natural immunity. Like I said, it's not. We're not coming up with the story. We're listening to the testimony, right? Um, Cassie also testified later in the day. She testified that Cassie said she used drugs during every freak off she participated in. So basically, she was high every time that she participated in the freak off, right? When the prosecutor asked why she replied, she said, "For me, it was a disassociative and numbing. I couldn't imagine myself doing any of that without having some sort of buffer or way not to feel it for what it really was, which was emotionless sex with a stranger that I didn't really want to have sex with," right? So now they're trying to set it up, this 10 years, 13, 14, 15 years after the fact, her saying somebody that she really didn't want to have sex with, this whoever the stranger was, whether it was Daniel Phillips or whoever, right? During her testimony, Cassie identified some of the many male escorts she said she hired for freak off. Now listen, did you hear that? During her testimony, Cassie identified some of the many male escorts she said she hired for freak offs at Combs' behest, right? So now she's saying that she hired him at his behest, right? At the direction of Sean Combs, right? As she spoke, prosecutors displayed photos of the men on courtroom monitors. She identified some of their real names. Others she knew only by their nicknames, including the Punisher, right? So one of the male workers, I guess, was named the Punisher for whatever reason, right? Cassie said some of the men procured online were flown in to freak offs in such places as Los Angeles, Miami, Las Vegas. Others were only used for encounters in New York City. One of those men, a stripper named Daniel Phillips, testified on Monday and Tuesday. So that's what I was thinking about the tapes that they say Cassie has, or basically the prosecution has. They have tapes from Cassie's cell phone. Cassie basically recorded, I guess, freak off videos herself, and I think that was probably one of the reasons that why Diddy basically settled that civil case, because he knew that she was in possession of evidence, and like some of the stuff that she began to allude to in the civil case. Now she was able to basically say, okay, cool, you know what? And then Diddy looked at him and was like, yeah, you know what? And then they threatened, I think, in the civil case that she had more evidence that she would be ready to show at trial. And 24 hours, the case was settled, basically, right? I think Diddy knew what time it was at that particular time. Yeah, that was going on. So once again, the guy Daniel Phillips testified. Like I said, she's basically saying, you know what? I did all of this at Sean Combs' behest. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, once again, to me, she was complicit in this. Now they like, you know what? We want Diddy. We don't want you, Cassie. She said she hired him at his behest. She said she participated in the freak offs in 2008. So if you go back all the way to 2008, I'm trying to figure out what other women, if it was 2 decades, they saying basically 2 decades. I'm trying to figure out what other women, if he was just with Cassie like that, that were participating in freak offs that he was involved in too, other than I think the 4 or 5 that's supposed to be testifying in this case, right? So he basically Cassie, they basically say Cassie was heavily objectified, right? Cassie says she was heavily objectified during the freak offs. Cassie testified that she tried to speed up freak off sex acts with male sex workers so she could get to the part where she liked alone time with Combs, right? Like I said, this is what we hearing. She said she tried to speed up the freak offs so that she would get to the part she liked with alone time with Combs. So basically, what this is saying to us is that the only time that she got alone time with Sean P. Diddy is after the freak offs, not before, not no time where they just chilled. Like I said, she said she did one freak off a week. After 2008, she was doing like a freak off a week or something like that. And So she said she tried to speed it up so she can get to the part where she liked, and it was alone time with Combs. She said Combs dictated every aspect of the encounters and that he'd get mad if they ended too soon. It was his fantasy, she said. He was controlling the whole situation. He was directing it. Cassie said sometimes Combs would make her repeat sex acts with the escorts. On other occasions, she said multiple escorts were involved, right? I was an object being heavily objectified by men in that scenario, she testified. Combs didn't always stay in the room to watch Cassie have sex with the male sex workers, she said. Sometimes he'd go to another room and watch them via FaceTime, the iPhone video call app, she testified. So, you know, it's Puffy's fault. Everything is his fault. You know, I did it for him. He directed. I was objectified. This is, basically what she said. And he's saying, Ma Dizzle basically saying that she was afraid, right? Like I said, well, Ma Dizzle, I'm asking, I would say if you call it playing devil's advocate, I'm not even that, dealing with the facts. If she was afraid, why didn't she call the police at the hotel in 2016? The prime opportunity. Oh, okay. My bad, Mardills. My bad. I thought you said she was. I read that wrong. I'm sorry. She wasn't. About my bad. Yeah, plus 10 years, right? So my thing is, why didn't she? Deal with that situation at that particular time? That's just me asking. Like I said, because this is what was what was alluded to. So, because like I said, it seems like it's carefully crafted to implicate Diddy as the one who wanted to do it. But like I said, in 2008, she said she did it, and then she said after that she felt obligated. Right? There were times when the bodyguard said that they were getting to a fight, and Cassie would go home with her parents. Right? She would go back to the house, back home with her parents. And so once again, this is another situation and involving where she's basically saying, "Yo, I felt objectified," right? Yeah. Also, Cassie said, what else she said? She said, that the staff members had access to freak off videos. I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna tell you what she's saying, right? Cassie said she remembers feeling insane when Combs told her he wanted to start recording videos of the freak offs, right? So listen, Cassie said she remembers feeling insane. See, this is what I'm saying. The feeling insane. No, she should have felt like running. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. She felt feeling insane when Combs told her he wanted to start recording the videos of the freak offs. He explained it was for him and for after, right? So he wanted to keep mementos, if you will. You know what I mean? He wanted to keep mementos of the moments or the freak off. Cassie testified. She'd say they'd sometimes watch the videos while having sex, right? Because I guess that got Puffy off. You know what I mean? He was far gone at that particular point. And so once again, my thing is that sometimes when they didn't always. So listen though, so that goes to contradict what she said, that what the only alone time that she would have with Diddy is after the freak offs. But she just said that they'd sometimes watch the videos while they had sex. So that kind of debunks what that is. I'm just, like I said, I'm reading in between the lines, not what they're saying, but basically what they're not saying. Cassie said she was apprehensive about being recorded and went on to delete videos that he recorded using her electronic devices. Other videos were on his devices, which she could access by his staff, she said, right? So she said sometimes she deleted the videos, but I guess she didn't delete the ones that she kept, the ones that she submitted for the case, the ones that she submitted to the prosecution that the media is now asking, can they view? So the media has been basically putting in a request to be able to review the videos in which I think they're going to show, or they might have shown already to the jury. The media is saying they wanted to view the videos so that they can report on it to see what it was. Now, the prosecution doesn't want the media to see it. Why is that? Will the media basically tell the truth about what's being seen, that Cassie perhaps may have enjoyed it more than she's alluding to at this particular time because she's testifying in a criminal case against Sean Combs? We don't know. Like I said, but most of the times when people are not allowed to do certain things, you know, that's how people think. You know, they think like, well, you know, they got something to hide, right? And that's how most people, you know, when they think negative, they think like that. Somebody got something to hide, somebody doing something, you know what I mean? And these are the things that they tell themselves. It has nothing to do with the reality of what's really going on, right? So yeah. So and then, like I said, when you see, you know, as the video of Cassie being dragged, look, so they really harping on this video. This video is like the 2016 video. They're really harping on this video as the video of Cassie being dragged and kicked at the elevator at the Los Angeles hotel, right, was shown in court at the end of the day. So they played it again. So I guess they want to have, they're trying to basically say, okay, he's a domestic abuser. You know, I'm waiting to the point where they get into the criminality of the criminal intent, right? The criminal intent, because to me, it seems that it was done for pure pleasure. There was no criminal intent. He was trying to get off. And like I said, you know, that's just what that was. And like I said, Daniel Phillips said the first time they ever did it, Cassie gave him $3,000 and they gave him $3,000 more. She told him she would give him more after it's over, right? So today, again, as the video of Cassie being dragged and kicked at an elevator bank in Los Angeles in 2016 was shown in court at the end of the day, several jurors looked up from the video on the monitors in front of them settled in their eyes on Cassie. She did not seem emotional as to the video was shown. So they saying they looked up at Cassie while they were showing the video, and she didn't seem emotional as the video was shown. But it came at the end of the day, after a lengthy testimony with graphic descriptions of sex acts she said she carried out to please Combs. Once again, what I was just saying, I don't see criminal intent. I see it being done to pleasure P. Diddy, which is crazy. You know what I mean? As beautiful as Cassie is, like I say, everybody's different. Everybody has their different levels of pleasure and how they find pleasure in certain things, if you will, right? Combs interacted with lawyers on either side of him during Cassie's testimony, but remained largely stoic. During an afternoon break, he made a heart shape with his hands toward his twin daughters and mouths, "Thank you." He also blew a kiss towards his mother, right, for their support in the court. So like I said, so now, as to, they put in they basically put in a request to the judge to see the freak off tapes, right? So the judge provisionally denies reporters' request to be shown freak off footage. Media organizations, including the Associated Press, had asked the judge to let at least 3 pool reporters view explicit recordings that will be shown to the jury tomorrow. So tomorrow, the jury will be shown these alleged freak off tapes that Cassie gave to them. I don't know if they got anything from Sean P. Combs' house or whatever, or any other kind of electronic devices for him, but tomorrow in court, the freak off tapes will be shown to the jury, right? But Judge Aaron Subramanian provisionally denied the request. He gave attorneys Tuesday night to make an additional submission before he rules on the subject on Wednesday morning. So today, the judge said no. He's giving the prosecution, because the prosecution is the only one that I think that is basically fighting it. I think the defense, Diddy, they want the tapes to be seen. They want, you know, the truth to be revealed, and from that perspective, And yeah, so tomorrow the judge gonna make the final ruling on whether the tapes will be shown to the media or not. So yeah, man, it was a hell of a day. So like I said, I can't wait till tomorrow. I think this is going to be really really interesting, man. As to but I like I said, for me, I haven't seen any criminal intent. Yeah, like I said, Carla Shepard says she hasn't seen any sex trafficking on a RICO yet. Yeah, everybody hit the like button, hit the share button. It's all good. Like I said, I appreciate the people listening that are in the chat, as well as the people who are not in the chat. Like I said, we got 154 people. You know what I mean? Hit the like button, hit the share button, please. You know. Hey, Anthony X, brother Anthony X said, Diddy's was nothing but a swinger, but this is what Iceman been doing this for years, selling new political journal. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, a lot of people, rich people, you know what I mean? They swing, they into like this different stuff and whatever have you, right? So like I said, I was saying that earlier. I'm like, this is nothing new, you know what I mean? It's just Sean P. Diddy Combs, P. Diddy, if you want to, call him whatever you want to call him. We say representing New York. He said, what we say, Iceman said Cassie had a 10-album deal with Diddy, not releasing her music. Well, he released a single, like I said once again. So let me ask you this. So Diddy's responsible for Cassie getting into a personal relationship when the original relationship was based on business? Diddy's responsible for that too? Pebbles was married to L.A. Reid, right? She was an artist before, and then she married L.A. Reid. I mean, like I said, different strokes for different folks, man. You know what I mean? Different strokes for different folks. And like I said, you can't blame you can't blame her. Like I said, Michelle A was involved with Dr. Dre. Remember? Michelle A and Dr. Dre, they had kids together when Dr. Dre and them was on NWA. Michelle A was under the NWA, wasn't she? Right? There's a plenty of situations in where in the music industry, somebody who was deemed to be above somebody or below somebody, they had a relationship, and all of it didn't fare out, you know what I mean, to be any worse or any different than anybody else. Sometimes people have fights, the rocky road. Later on, Michelle A had a relationship with Suge Knight, and she had a relationship and a record deal with Death Row. As a matter of fact, when Suge went to jail, she ran Death Row for a little period of time, right? Like I said, when it doesn't go good, somebody else needs to be responsible for it. When things don't go good for people, they want to blame somebody else. They don't want to accept accountability. But the sad part about that is you don't become a better person. You know what I mean? Ducking accountability, trying to look for somebody else to blame, and you know what I mean? You never become a better person. You're still the same person. Wherever you go, there you are, right? And I was sitting here thinking about how Cassie, her new husband feels. Now she has 2 children on the way with a third one. You know what I mean? I'm really happy that she's moved on with her life, and now she has some money to be able to be comfortable, and hopefully her kids to be comfortable for the rest of their lives. If how much money they're saying that she received. You know what I mean? Hopefully she has a nice trust, and things like that. But like I said, at the end of the day, one must be accountable for their behavior. You can't say it was Sean P. Diddy Combs' decision that made Cassie do what she did. It wasn't. It was her decision. She felt the pros outweighed the cons, and she went along with it for a while until she didn't want to go along with it anymore. You said after Anthony X said after the first swing, she never hit a note. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what it seemed like. Like I said, once again, did he put her in an apartment? Did he, you know what I mean, in LA and in New York, bought her cars? They asked her, how did you make money? She said, I was doing hosting parties and things like that, So like I said, she seemed like she was living a pretty normal life, but it just Diddy just got out of hand with the freak offs. It's like, dude, he was on a whole nother level. Like was he ever with her? Or did he just like watch it? You know what I mean? That's kind of like the sick part, you know? Yeah. Only put out one album. But like I said, once again, that contractual situation, I mean, like I said, she could have left and been like, you know what, I'm done. Like I said, it might have been hard for her to go and find, another situation, being how powerful Diddy was in the music industry. But sometimes, people leave. They be like, you know what, I'm done. You know, so let's deal with Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre said what? Dr. Dre left Death Row. Dr. Dre left with nothing. Like, man, I'm leaving. I'm done. This ain't a satisfactory situation for me. You know what I mean? All of the violence, all of the things that was happening at Death Row. Dre didn't sit back and be like, yeah, it was Suge's fault, and it was Suge's decision why I left. And no, Dre left because he wanted to leave. Do you see how that works out? The situation wasn't satisfactory. The situation wasn't a positive situation. Dr. Dre left. And there were situations where they said they got fighting, it was this and it was that, and various stories and things that went on. But he left. He left with nothing. That's the decision that you make when you feel like you're in an unsatisfactory situation. Good, bad, or indifferent. Whatever's going to be is going to be at the end of the day. If you know what you're doing, and Dr. Dre proved that he knew what he was doing. You look at where Suge is at right now, based on, once again, based on one's decisions that they make, right? You see with Dr. Dre, when Dr. Dre left Death Row, I remember being down Record One Studio on Ventura Boulevard, right? I remember how bleak it looked before he had got with Eminem. You know what I mean? It was like, whoa, like, dude, you got to kind of start all over again. I seen that with my own eyes. And so most people was like, well, damn, he left Death Row and he left everything. Pac was still living at that time and all of that. And so it's like, but now look, so like I said, once again, and Dr. Dre has always been accountable for his behavior, the D-Bond situation, all of that. He made mistakes. He apologized for that. You know what I mean? And everything else, like I said, once again. So yeah, it's crazy. You said, do I understand that it's illegal to pay for now? Like I said, once again, who he said, do I understand it's illegal to pay for sex? Based on who? Well, Cassie, like I said, did they gave Cassie immunity? Because she paid the dude the dude testified, Daniel Phillips testified that he got the money from Cassie. But they don't want Cassie, they want Diddy. So is she absolved of that? Because the government gave her, you know what I mean? The government gave her the deal? Or does she get held responsible too? I'm just asking the question. No, it's not a crime for an employer to get involved with the employee. No, absolutely not. No, it's not against the law. Absolutely not. You've been over there on that other podcast listening to that, right? Yeah, no, it's not. No. One can make a choice. Like I said, when you think about the bigger picture, do I think it was what I advised her not to? Like, did she have her own legal counsel? No, she chose to be in a relationship with Sean P. Diddy Combs because she thought that being closer to him would have been more advantageous to her career than not being close to him. Think about it. Was Faith Evans under Bad Boy? Was Faith Evans under Bad Boy? Right? Did Faith, from what I understand, I don't think Faith ever messed with Puffy. Not that I know of. But she was under Bad Boy, right? You see what I'm saying? So did she choose to go that route? No, she was dealing with Biggie. She was dealing with another artist under the label, right? So like I said, Faith is responsible for her choices. She chose not to move in that direction. So yeah, I mean, like I said, once again, man, you could pick it apart as much as you want to. People are gonna always side on the side that they feel like that, that benefits them the most, the side of the argument that benefits them. I'm just going right down the middle, man. I'm going right down the middle. Like I said, Cassie made her decisions. Diddy made his decisions. Now their sex life is being played out in court. You know what I mean? I have not seen any kind of criminal intent. You know what I mean? They're basically saying that when it comes down to it, they're basically saying that, hey, you know what? It's all Diddy's fault. Cassie did nothing wrong. It was all him. It was his decision. It was his idea, his decision. He had a battery in her back. He had her attached to strings. You know what I mean? Like I said, if that's what we're going to believe, then that applies to everybody. Then somebody can go and say that about you as a guy and be like, yeah, it was him. It was his decision. He made me do it. You know what I mean? I was scared of him, and all of that. But like I said, once again, when does the accountability come down for one? Like I said, when somebody does something positive and something good, and there's accolades to be given, oh man, they don't even want to give you no credit. They want to take it all. They look like a genius. You know what I mean? But let something bad happen on the other end, and guess what they're gonna say? It was his fault. He the one that made that decision, right? It's just that simple. That's just how people are. But when you learn to take both, then you really truly learn, and you really truly become that person that can handle that and that can deal with that. Kareem Smith, what's good? Yeah, like I said, they already know that. That's why they gave her, from what I'm understanding, they gave her immunity. They already know. So it's like, on one end, he's guilty, but she guilty too, but we don't really care about her guilt. We care more about his guilt. This is the United States of America. This is how the legal system works. So, like I said, you can bend it, but don't break it. You know what I mean? Yeah, like I said, who are we to say? We not on the jury. The 12 people that are going to decide Diddy's fate are on that jury. You know what I mean? Like I said, I appreciate everybody for coming through and listening. And more importantly, like I said, we'll stay tuned tomorrow. They're supposed to pay the tapes tomorrow, and I'm thinking, I can't really understand anything else that anybody else has to really say about this, because their whole case was based on the premise of Cassie's civil case. So anybody else saying anything else in regards to that, like I said, I can't see it really having any kind of weight. You know what I mean? So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys coming through. Your boy DELRAY. Stay tuned till tomorrow. Straight gang.